Okay, let's unpack this. You know that feeling, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The fresh start, maybe it's January 1st, maybe it's a new school year, or just a Monday.
Yeah.
You get the planner, the cool pens, you're motivated, you planned everything out.
You're gonna nail it this time.
Totally. You nail it for a few days, maybe a week,
Yeah.
and then poof,
Oof. Gone.
life happens, the planner gets forgotten, and you're back to chaos, maybe feeling like you're the only one who just can't make planning stick.
And what's really at the heart of that struggle, based on these sources you brought us, is the difference between buying a tool and building a habit.
Ah, okay. Habit versus tool.
Exactly. Planning isn't just having a nice calendar, it's a consistent practice.
Yeah.
So this deep dive is all about pulling the key insights from this stack of articles and posts of research, the practical tips, maybe even the, surprising findings
Right.
to figure out why the planning habit so often fails and, more importantly, how you can build one that actually works for you.
One that fits your real life.
One that integrates into your real life. Yeah, not just some idealized version of it.
Exactly. So we've got articles here covering everything from habit science to productivity techniques, personal reflections on planning fails, and practical advice.
A good mix?
Yeah. Our mission is to cut through all that, extract the truly useful knowledge nuggets, find those aha moments, and give you a shortcut to understanding how to make planning something you actually do consistently.
Okay, let's jump into what the sources identify as the core problem then. They're pretty aligned here. Planning isn't truly effective unless it becomes a consistent habit.
Right. Not a one-off thing.
It's not a one-off task you check off, it's an ongoing rhythm.
And one writer captures this perfectly, saying that when planning isn't a habit, your weeks can feel intensely off.
Mm-hmm. Off kilter.
Yeah, either they're completely empty because you haven't looked ahead, or they're total reactive chaos.
Right, we're just putting out fires.
Yeah, exactly. And it's easy to then blame the planner itself.
Right.
Or, worse, feel like you're just stuck at some remedial sticker sticking level, as another article humorously puts it.
A medial sticker sticking. I like that.
That feeling can really feed a cycle of self-doubt and make you feel like you've failed before you've really even started.
And that self-doubt is a huge barrier. The sources highlight some common pitfalls that trigger the cycle. One major one is over-planning, trying to cram too much in, setting an unrealistic schedule.
Oh yeah, been there.
The moment the inevitable disruption hits, the whole thing feels impossible to recover and you just abandon it.
Or trying to map out every hour of every day for the next 6 months.
Exactly.
One piece points out that planning 180 days ahead in granular detail is practically guaranteed to fail because, well, life rarely follows a script that tight.
Life doesn't work like that, precisely. Another very common issue highlighted is simply forgetting to use the planner.
Right. Out of sight, out of mind.
Your routine gets interrupted, you take a break, maybe you're sick, and suddenly weeks have passed. The chaos you were trying to avoid just becomes the default state, as one writer describes their own experience.
And that's where that psychological layer comes in, that insidious, nasty little voice that whispers, why bother planning? You'll just mess it up again anyway.
And it's more than just negative self-talk, too. Sometimes, the sources suggest, we might unconsciously resist or even, sabotage our routines.
Sabotage. How so?
Well, it could stem from anxiety about the future, a fear of not executing perfectly, perfectionism.
Perfectionism, that's a big one.
Or even a subtle rebellion against feeling too boxed in by a schedule, understanding that complexity is key to moving past it.
Okay, so if the problem is that planning needs to become a habit, let's talk about how these sources suggest we actually build one. First off, can we please just put the 21-day myth to bed?
Yes, absolutely. Let's put it to bed. While that idea is popular, the research paints a much more varied picture. Studies cited suggest habit formation isn't a simple countdown. It can take anywhere from 18 days for very simple habits to a surprising 254 days on average for more complex ones.
254 days.
Yeah. This finding, highlighted in sources like the Calm blog, really underscores the insight that patience and flexibility aren't optional. They are fundamental to habit building. Don't get discouraged if it takes longer than 3 weeks.
Okay, so patience is key. What else seems really critical according to sources like the Coach Space? They talk about it needing to matter to you.
Yes, on a deeper level, this gets to the power of intrinsic motivation.
Intrinsic, meaning from within.
Exactly. The sources explain that a habit is far more likely to stick if it's tied to an internal goal or desire.
Hmm.
Think about exercising. Building that habit is more sustainable if you're doing it because you want the energy to be fully present with your family.
Right, something personal.
That's internal rather than solely to meet someone else's standard of appearance, which is external.
Makes sense.
The advice here is to keep asking yourself why you want to plan or build a habit until you uncover that fundamental personal core reason. This aligns beautifully with the Calm blog's emphasis on setting clear, meaningful intentions for your habits.
Find your why. And starting doesn't need to be some huge investment or perfect ritual either, right?
Yeah,
One source suggests starting incredibly simple.
super simple. Maybe just a cheap binder and printing out a free calendar.
Seriously basic.
This is where utility completely trumps aesthetics, especially initially. And importantly, a messy planner isn't a sign of failure.
Oh, that's a relief.
It's proof you're using it. As one writer discovered, letting go of the idea that it needs to be an Instagram-worthy masterpiece is incredibly freeing.
Forget the perfect pictures.
Forget them. Don't worry about perfect penmanship or fancy stickers when you're starting. Use a pencil so you can easily change things, or use a pen if that's faster than they say. The point is just to get it down. As that writer humorously concludes, it's just a planner.
It's just a planner. Stop overthinking it.
Stop overthinking the presentation. Yeah.
So, let's get tactical. How do these sources suggest integrating planning into your actual week and day? What's the first concrete step?
Okay, the most consistent recommendation is setting a specific, dedicated weekly planning time.
Weekly. Okay.
Use this block. One source found about 30 minutes on Sunday worked well to do two things. Quickly review the past week,
Look back.
what worked, what didn't, and then plan out just the next week.
Just the week ahead, not the whole year.
Just the week. According to one article, these critical few minutes can save you hours of indecision and scrambling later. Keeping it weekly keeps the plan relevant and trustworthy.
Then that weekly check-in informs the daily rhythm.
Exactly. In addition to the weekly session, the sources suggest a quick daily check-in.
Daily too. How long?
Just a few minutes. Spend just a few minutes in the morning looking at your top priorities for the day and start there.
Okay.
At the end of the day, quickly review what you got done and move anything unfinished. These brief daily moments, combined with the weekly plan, are what solidify the habit loop.
This directly addresses the problem of planning too far ahead and getting overwhelmed then.
It does. The advice isn't to never think long-term, but to focus your detailed planning only on the next week, perhaps after setting some higher-level goals or maybe 6-week benchmarks.
Gotcha. Big picture, then zoom in for the week.
Right. This prevents the frustration and abandonment that happens when those hyper-detailed long-range plans inevitably get blown up by reality.
What about the feeling of having a million things to do, that never-ending list? How do the sources suggest managing that?
Ah, yes, the overwhelm. This is where they emphasize ruthless prioritization.
Ruthless. Okay.
When things get busy or unexpected demands pop up, you need to know what absolutely must get done.
The true non-negotiables.
Exactly. And a practical tip shared is to keep those sprawling, non-date specific to-do lists off your main calendar view.
Oh, interesting. Where do they go?
Use a separate list for those, maybe a running task list, and simply schedule when you'll work on them or review the list. Put time on the calendar to look at the list.
Ah, plan to plan almost.
Sort of. The distinction one source makes is brilliant. Your planner should be a reality planner, reflecting what's genuinely possible.
Reality.
Not a fantasy planner that just becomes a list of all your aspirations, which can just feel overwhelming and demoralizing.
Fantasy planner. I think I've had a few of those. And this is where productivity techniques come in. Time blocking, for example.
Yes, time blocking is a major technique discussed. It's about intentionally dividing your day into specific blocks and dedicating each block to a particular task or type of work.
Like 9 to 10 is email, 10 to 12 is Project X.
Exactly. Closely related is task batching.
Batching.
Grouping similar small tasks like email or returning calls into a single block to reduce the mental cost of switching contexts.
Okay, get all the little annoying things done at once.
Pretty much. Day theming is a more extreme version, like Mike Vardy's approach of dedicating entire days to specific work categories, say writing on Mondays, meetings on Tuesdays.
Wow, a whole day theme. Okay.
These methods provide structure and help you focus.
There's also time boxing, which sounds similar but different.
Right. Time boxing, as described, is setting a fixed time limit for a task.
A deadline within the day.
Exactly. For example, saying, I will work on writing this section for 90 minutes from 10:00 to 11:30. When the timer's up, you stop or wrap up quickly.
What's the benefit of that?
It can be incredibly effective for fighting perfectionism and Parkinson's law. Work expands to fill the time available.
Ah, yes.
It forces you to be efficient within that constraint. It's good enough for now.
Of course, real life involves interruptions and unexpected demands. You can't block everything perfectly.
No, you can't. And the sources are clear that the plan needs to be flexible. They suggest building in buffer time between blocks.
Little gaps.
Or even having conditional blocks you can use if you fall behind. If your job is inherently reactive, you might need to dedicate blocks specifically for handling unexpected issues.
Plan for the unexpected.
Kind of. The key is to see the plan as a guide you interact with, not a rigid schedule you fail if you deviate from. Cal Newport famously views editing his plan throughout the day almost like a strategic game of chess.
Ooh, I like that. A chess game. And the tools paper. Digital. Does it matter what you use?
Not fundamentally, the principles are the same.
So use what works.
Exactly. The sources discuss both options, paper planners or digital tools like calendar apps and task managers. One writer details using labels in a digital task manager to batch similar items and then scheduling those batches onto their digital calendar.
So you can make digital work with these principles too.
Absolutely. The core idea is to use cues, reminders, track progress, and understand your own energy levels throughout the day. You can do that with various tools. The best tool is the one you'll actually use consistently.
This brings us to the mindset shift, making sure the planning process fits you, not just copying someone else.
This is critical for sustainability. Trying to perfectly replicate someone else's planning system just because it works for them is often a recipe for failure.
Because we're all different.
Exactly. You need to find the methods and habits that resonate with your personality, your energy levels, and your life demands. One great technique mentioned is habit stacking.
Habit stacking.
Linking a new planning habit to an existing one. Like, after I make my morning coffee, I will spend 5 minutes reviewing my top priorities for the day. You tack it onto something you already do.
Smart. Leverage existing routines. And making the process a little more enjoyable doesn't hurt either, right?
Absolutely. Temptation bundling is suggested.
Temptation bundling. Sounds fun.
It is. Pairing the planning habit with something you enjoy, like listening to a favorite podcast only while you plan your week.
Reward yourself for doing the habit.
Basically, even small things like using pens you actually like, as one writer points out, can make the few minutes you dedicate to planning feel less like a chore.
Little joys. Okay, the sources are very real about the fact that building habits isn't a smooth upward curve. You will fall off the wagon.
Oh yes, this is completely normalized. It's not an if, it's a when. The sources acknowledge the feelings of dread, self-doubt, or just plain forgetting that happened. It happens to everyone who tries to build a new routine.
So when that happens, what's the advice for getting back on track?
Oh.
Because that's where people often give up for good.
Right. The overwhelming message is just start again.
Just start. Don't wait.
Don't wait for a Monday. Don't wait for a new month. Don't wait until you have the perfect system figured out. Identify what specifically got you off track, what's stuck in your craw, as one source colorfully puts it.
Stuck in your craw.
And address that one thing. Take baby steps. The power comes from breaking the inertia, which happens simply by sitting down and doing something, even if it's messy or imperfect. The most important thing is that you restart. Be kind to yourself.
Patience and self-compassion again. Ultimately, it sounds like planning a habit, using these techniques, is about gaining a sense of control over your time, feeling less frantic.
That's exactly it. Research cited shows that front-loading decisions about how you'll spend your time making those plans saves significant mental energy later in the day.
Less decision fatigue.
And dramatically increases follow-through on your intentions. It helps you be more deliberate with your most finite resource of time. It empowers you to say no to things that don't align with your actual goals because you already have a plan for what does.
So the big takeaways from this deep dive seem to be, planning isn't just a tool, it's a habit. And building it takes patience, likely much longer than 21 days.
Patience.
Connect your planning to a deep, intrinsic why. Start simple, and don't aim for perfection. A messy planner is a working planner.
Love that. A working planner.
Carve out consistent weekly planning time and daily check-ins. Focus detailed planning on the week ahead, not months out. Ruthlessly prioritize and use techniques like time blocking, batching, or boxing to add structure that works for you.
Tailor it to you.
Build in flexibility because life happens.
And remember that falling off track is a normal part of the process. The key is simply to start again, taking that small next step. Don't beat yourself up.
All of this points towards less reacting, more intentionality, and ultimately turning that feeling of chaotic overwhelm into a sense of calm capability, more control.
Exactly. So if planning is fundamentally about intentionally deciding how you will spend your precious time and energy, here's a thought to leave you with. What's just one tiny, consistent planning habit you could commit to starting this week
Just one small thing.
that feels genuinely aligned with the deepest reason why you want to accomplish your goals? Think about the subtle but profound difference between planning to do something and planning to be the person who consistently does those things.